All right, Chris, this is your spiel. You take it away and tell us what we're doing here today.
All right. So, hello. I think I only have met Lainey, so I don't know the rest of you guys. I recognize you though from Facebook, and I've seen some of you at some competitions. So it's cool to get to have this opportunity tonight. So really excited. I like to hear myself talk. So hopefully I won't overdo it. So just a little bit about me. I'm officially now part of Team Center Stage Figures and Physiques. I've known Tina for quite a while, but she's sort of been more of a posing coach and a friend, and this year she really just stepped in and offered me a lot of support when I needed it most. So she's amazing. So we are all in good hands. I have...
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I accept.
I'm going to see I can only see like two of you, so I want to see all your faces. And this is kind of weird for me too. I'm a yoga teacher. I have been teaching some form of yoga for about 15 years. I've been in the health and wellness industry since 2000. So I've done everything from gym memberships to work in the front desk to personal training. I teach aerobics. The big thing I focus on now is probably yoga. I've been competing since 2009. And I'm in an off season right now. I'm also a trained massage therapist. So I love the human body. I love learning how it works. I like teaching people how to work it in a way that's going to be safe. It's just really my passion, trying to help people find their bodies and work it the way they're supposed to. So why this is so important to me, flexibility, we were kind of debating on how we should approach this. Should we call it a yoga thing? Should we call it a flexibility thing? I decided probably not to go with the yoga thing, just because that can kind of turn people off. I think when people think of yoga, they think about it's touching their toes or putting their foot behind their head. So I really want to just discuss why flexibility is so important, especially to what we do as bodybuilders. Michelle is not frozen anymore. Oh, no, she's gone. She's gone. So I've thought a million times like how I'm going to start this, but some of you guys, you can unmute your thing if you want to. My dog's going crazy.
Except for whoever's dog is barking.
That's mine. It's
okay,
mine.
that's yours. So you can't mute yours.
Can't mute yours.
You need a headset.
Yes. So how many of you, just be completely honest, spend any amount of time stretching after your workout? You do? Wait, where's everybody else? Lainey, do you?
So I used to.
Yeah.
I haven't in months.
Yeah. So I don't.
Training program. So you should be.
Well, yeah. Okay. So twice. I did yoga twice.
You did yoga. Okay. So, and I mean, truth be told, I do not. When I work in a gym, I teach, if I stay after I teach a class, or if I teach two classes, I've already been there for 2 hours, then I'm going to lift. If I'm going to do any cardio, I got to do that. So, I mean, I could be there for 3.5, 4 hours. When it gets time to be done, I'm done. I don't want to spend any more time there. And I think that's really how most people feel. Like if they're going to drop something out of their fitness routine, it's probably going to be the stretching at the end of the workout. And even when people do stretch at the end of the workout, when I see them at the gym, they're doing some dumb crap that's like 3 minutes long, and they're in, they're out, they're done. So I don't think they even really give it the time or the energy that it needs. So why is flexibility important for us, especially as bodybuilders? I really want to kind of touch on, athletes all around. But I think it's really important for us because there's just so many things. One is, we need that flexibility when we're on stage, we're holding these poses for a really long time. The other thing is just kind of getting to know our bodies in a way that, when we're lifting, we probably wouldn't, think of. On a more general term, flexibility is really going to help you with injury prevention. It's going to help you keep your muscles supple. It's going to help you keep the joints safe, all of that good stuff. I think us as a society as a whole, we spend a lot of time at a desk or on our phones, on our computers. So not only are we sedentary, but we're getting pulled forward. So everything here is getting pulled. So this is really tight. And then that causes a lot of stuff in the neck, the shoulder area, and then of course that lower back pain. I mean, I suffer from lower back pain just like everyone else does. But I think that that's a really big problem in our society right now. So flexibility can really help with all of that stuff as well. As we age, I'm sure most of you guys know we lose bone density, and we can actually make the bones stronger. So by lifting weights, you'll create stronger bones, not just build your muscle. But we also have something in the body called synovial fluid, and that's the stuff that keeps the joints lubricated, for lack of better words. That's exactly what it does. That starts to diminish too as we get older, but you can build more of that into your body too with, some flexibility work. As far as injury prevention, the flexibility is going to help speed up your recovery time. It's going to help reduce your soreness, and it's just going to loosen you up a little bit more. So behind me, I'm looking at my notes because I had a lot of things and I just wanted to make sure I covered them all. So your flexibility is going to help with the normal extensibility of all the soft tissue, and that's going to help keep that full range of motion. So when I think of other athletes, and muscular imbalance, that's another big thing too. So when I think of other athletes, like a baseball player that solely throws the ball with their right arm. So their right arm's going to be super strong. It's probably also going to be really tight. So that's going to create some muscular imbalances on that left side. And we also want to make sure that they're staying nice and open in other parts of their body, because then that's going to create all these injuries. For us, I don't know if you guys, I love Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm sure most of you guys too do as well, but he did The Apprentice, and I can't say that I watched every episode, but I did watch a few. And at the end, he always brought everything back to bodybuilding. And so that's sort of how I feel like everything always comes back to bodybuilding for me. So when I did my last show and I was on stage and it was a pro show, there was 2 other chicks on either side of me. And there's other ladies on the stage, but these were the 2 that I noticed the most. So we're all standing there holding our poses, and they're just like could not hold the breath, and I mean, as somebody that sits from the audience view and you watch, you can see people shaking on stage. And I don't think people lose points for that, but you can see it. And sometimes it's nerves, and sometimes it's just that they're not used to holding their muscles in those poses or positions. So this is where the yoga part comes in for me. So for me personally, like I said, I don't spend that time after my workout. I want to get in, I want to get out, but I also know how important it really is. How I got into yoga was many years ago. I just knew it was something good to do, right? So 15 years ago, I went out, I got a VHS cassette tape, if you guys even remember what those are, and it was Rodney Yee. He's was pretty well known back then. He was like this Asian guy, still around. And I popped this video in, I'm like, I'm gonna do some yoga. I thought it was just like most people, it's just stretching. And that guy in the first 10 minutes was doing a headstand. And I was like, well, this is not for me, but I knew something like a seed was planted. And so then, I kind of explored it a little bit more. I started doing something called body flow, which if any of you guys have ever heard it, we call it like the gateway drug into yoga. It's sort of like a yoga Pilates mixture class. And so that was sort of what got me into it. And I knew that it was important. I just didn't really understand why. Now the reason I do yoga is because I don't have time at the end of my workouts to stretch. I also think the breath work that comes with it, the mobility that comes with it, you're still creating strength when you're holding poses, that complete body awareness. It sort of is like, it's just a one-stop shop. You can just kind of get in and get it all done. It doesn't need to be an hour every time. You could do it in 10, 15 minutes a day. It doesn't need to be anything crazy. There are 3 types of flexibility that I did want to touch on, just not even talking about yoga. So you have your corrective flexibility. So that would be, like foam rolling, any kind of like myofascial release, could be deep tissue massage. You have your active flexibility and functional flexibility. And those 2 kind of go together for me. So the active flexibility is probably what you think of at the end of your workout. That's when you're going to hold like a hamstring stretch, stuff like that. The functional flexibility is sort of the more fun stuff. That's where I think yoga kind of comes in. So that's like holding a deep squat pose for a little while and building some hip mobility. So all of those are really, they're each one holds a good spot in our fitness, routine. What else did I want to touch on? Yes. So, okay, so without your proper flexibility or muscles that you build in the gym, like I said, you can develop that muscular imbalance. So bringing it back to bodybuilding, that is something that you will get, noticed for on stage when your muscles are not the right size, there's not symmetry. And so that's where I love the yoga part of it, because that will help the body sort of be equal on both sides. And, you know, I don't know. I think that the yoga is really just the best thing to do. So you guys can unmute. Do any of you have a yoga practice? I know some of you said you've done it a couple of times. Like, what is your experience with the yoga?
So I like body flow a lot because, like you said, it's kind of it doesn't require a whole lot of advanced stuff.
Right.
And I end up just feeling kind of taller and leaner when I'm done. But generally, I kind of like what you said, though. I just do the bare minimum after a workout. I have dealt with some injuries over the past year. And so I have a mobility guy that kind of shows me all the nerve flossing that I need to do and the different breathing I need to do to fix my back. So I don't do everything he tells me to do. Like, okay, what are the 2 most important things you told me to work on? Okay, let me get those 2 things done. But, yeah. So I do it every day, but it's 2-3 minutes. And
yeah. Hey, it's better than nothing. You know what I mean? Lainey, what about you?
No, I don't have any yoga practices right now. I was trying to do like the YouTube series, like Yoga Junkie and things like that. And I stuck to it for about a week, and then, you know, with school and everything, to be honest, homework is like precedent. So like I have to put homework above working out, which is really hard for me to do sometimes because that's not what I want to do. Like I would rather be in the gym. But as far as yoga, like I know it's beneficial, but it hurts for me, which is like, it's supposed to, because that means it's working, but it's almost like I just can't convince myself to wake up early to do that. Yeah. So I just stretch at the gym. Like I'll do static stretches, or I'll do active stretches where like you do like leg kicks, butt kicks, things like that, like after I get off the treadmill. But usually the treadmill is my warm up, and that's as extensive as it gets.
Well, and to play devil's advocate, because yoga is wonderful, but it's not actually supposed to hurt.
No.
I mean, should it be uncomfortable if you're really tense? Yes. But so my 30-day yoga challenge that I gave myself was apparently the worst possible thing I could have done, according to the physical therapist that I'm seeing. Because my issue is not flexibility. I am incredibly flexible, but I have an enormous amount of muscular imbalances in my joints. And so stretching things that are actually already overstretched was just a bad idea. So, but that's, so it's not, I can't wait to get back to yoga because I really didn't think I was going to love it as much as I did, but that shit was fucking hard and I loved it, every minute of it, and I really want to do it again. But the interesting thing with bodybuilding and some of the muscular imbalances, so I was a gymnast for 15 years before I ever got into bodybuilding, and I don't know if you've ever seen gymnast bodies and you also see competitors' bodies. We are constantly in the way that our hips are kicked back, right? So we're always in an anterior why can't I think of the word? Tell me the word.
Anterior tilt?
Yes, the anterior pelvic tilt, right? Which is the worst possible way that you're supposed to stand, right? So literally having done that for, stood in that kind of stance for 40 plus years is what has completely thrown my body out of alignment. So if these things had been available to me, and kind of getting my muscular structure in a better alignment, not just bodybuilding, not just gymnastics, not just lifting heavy things and hopping around in the gym, had I paid attention to those things years ago, I may not be in, having the issues that I do now. And anybody who has lower back issue, sciatica, like all of those things are related to your whole lumbopelvic hip region, right? So it's your core. And so I think not letting it get progressed to kind of like where I am, right, is where Chris is talking about, and kind of like implementing these things before you end up with issues.
Yeah, and I think you're like, one in a very small number of people that the yoga was probably the worst thing for you. But most people need it. But kind of touch on what Lainey said, I think, most of us think when we think about our fitness, weightlifting, cardio, weightlifting, cardio, weightlifting, cardio. And, you know, I actually thought about that today with the gymnasts. Like most people, when you think of somebody that's flexible, you're thinking of a dancer or another yogi. And I mean, I don't want to look like that. They're skinny, you know, but some people may want that. But I think most of us are going for either, you know, a fit body or a muscular body. And so when you think flexibility, it's not usually the first body type that comes to your mind. And let's be honest, I mean, we want to be healthy, but we want to look good, right? I mean, I know the main reason that I got into fitness in the first place was all aesthetics. Now it's changed a little bit, but so, you know, that's the thing. I think that, you know, when we think about our fitness trifecta is usually what I like to call it. So you have your cardio, you have your weight training, and then you have the flexibility. I think people just don't realize how important that flexibility is. And I think they're all as equal, you know, because of like what Tina's saying. So I work with a lot of teenagers. I teach yoga at a high school. And it's mostly boys, and they're all, right now they're coming out of their basketball season. And these guys cannot do a tricep push-up without crying. I mean, they are the biggest bunch of sissies I've ever met in my whole life. But they've got no hip mobility. Their muscles are all tight. They do something called child's pose, which most of you guys know. I mean, that's like a resting pose, right? And I go and I put my hands on their lower back, and they're like, ow! You know, I'm like, you guys need this. You know, you need to catch this and nip it in the bud, because once you get older, you're going to bust your knees. I mean, these guys are, you know, they're all over the court on their basketball game. And, you know, if they're not creating that synovial fluid, they're not keeping their hips and their knees healthy, then they're in for a lot of injuries. And I mean, I've had a guy that's had both of his knees replaced, you know, and he's like 26. So that's just crazy to me. But so, I mean, I really think it's important, and I just want to drive it home. I think that yoga is great. It is not for everybody. And the thing that makes me cringy is when people say, who do you recommend I do yoga through YouTube with? Or what videos should I get? None. You should go to an actual studio, get somebody to put their hands on you. They're going to be able to see what you're doing, which I just wish Tina was a little bit closer, because I would be at your house, like, doing it with you and making sure that you're, you know, I mean, you know your body, and most of us we have a pretty good understanding of our body as bodybuilders, but, you know, I just think it's so important to have somebody actually looking at you so they can manipulate your body, making those little tweaks. And like I said, I've been doing this for almost 15 years, and I take at least 2 classes a week, and almost every class the teacher is correcting something. Like in my mind, I'm doing exactly what she says, but actually I'm not, you know what I mean? So it's just kind of nice to have somebody there to put their hands on you. I do want to give you guys some stretches or some poses that you can do and incorporate. Most of them you've probably already been doing, or at least have seen before. So I will get to that in just a moment. But does anybody have any questions or any concerns? I know, aside from what Tina said.
So I do. So I did yoga twice so far, right? 2 weekends.
So you're super experienced, right?
I'm pretty But it, like Lanny said, it hurt. So I felt like I did a separate workout after doing yoga.
Ooh,
right?
Yeah.
But the hardest part for me wasn't, well, okay, it kind of was trying to get into the position that the instructor was getting into, right? Because you see something and you want to mimic it to the T. And then you catch like a hamstring cramp, and you stand up in the middle of the class and everybody's looking at you like you never done it before, right? But the breathing was the hardest part for me, because once it starts to hurt, I can no longer focus on the breathing the way she tells me to, right? Like, oh, take a deep breath and think about whatever she's saying. And I can't on it enough to, one, stretch properly or whatever, get into the position. I'm more focused on, oh my gosh, this hurts so bad.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. You know, I kind of figured it's only the second time. I'll figure it out. It'll come, right? But that definitely was a challenge for me.
Do you know what kind of yoga you took? Do you remember what kind of class it was?
Yeah, it was at Gold's, and it's called, because I put it in my calendar, Vinyasa Flow Yoga.
Vinyasa. Okay, so and that's the type of yoga I teach. So you know, just like there's a million different types of massage, there's a million different types of yoga out there. And I think Vinyasa is really freaking hard. It's an athletic style workout. Even it's not called power yoga, but it's hard because you're constantly moving the whole time. And when you're not moving, you're holding poses. Typically what I tell my people is you got to give it like 3 to 5 classes. So you got to come I tell them, you can't tell me you don't like it until the 5th class, and then you can tell me you don't like it anymore. So I would definitely give it a few more classes, you know, and just see. But I would, again, maybe treat that as a standalone thing. So I wouldn't lift or do anything for that. You want to come in pretty fresh. There's also, there's 2 other classes that I would recommend, and one you could totally do on your own. You could pull it up on YouTube. I would be totally fine with you pulling it up on YouTube and doing it on your own. It's called restorative yoga. So I teach that once a week. That shockingly has become like my jam. Like, I love restorative yoga. So you get pillows, you get blankets, you basically are supposed to be on the floor the entire time. You're supposed to be supported. You hold the postures, and you can hold anything. A traditional restorative class, I think that you're supposed to be in these positions for like 15 minutes. But I usually don't have that much time, so I keep them there anywhere between 3 and 10 typically. And I'll show you guys a couple that you can do on your own too. But that's a really good one, and I think that that's really good for people that are always on the go, anybody that's doing CrossFit or they're like in prep especially. Great class to throw in there once a week, because you're going to be able to breathe. You're going to get a little meditation in there too. And you're still working on flexibility. It's just in a different way. You know, you're supportive. You're giving your muscles a chance to really just let go and open up. And that's the part I like about it the most, is you're really working on like chest openers, right? So that's the biggest thing for me. Like, I have some hip flexibility. I have no flexibility in my shoulders anymore. Like, I used to be able to reach back and like do weird crap with my arms and like do all that stuff. I can't go back here anymore. Like, they just doesn't happen. And I have a lot of neck pain too. And it's because everything here is just so tight, right? There's so much tightness. So all this gets pulled forward. So in a restorative class, you're going to get the ability to just lay there and be really open and let this kind of open up. And you'd be surprised at how that really will start to make you feel better. The other class is called a yin yoga. And that is a little, so restorative, when people ask me what that means, I'm like, that's pretty juicy. Like, it's like lovey. You should feel good when you're done. You might have a hard time sitting still that long. Like, that's typically the hardest part for me. It's like, I just can't lay there for a long time. My brain just gets super busy. But I try to force myself anyway. Yin, you're going to hold poses, and they're supposed to be more like stretchy poses. And it's like, you really got to breathe. So I like it, but it's really uncomfortable. Like, for Tina, probably would never be something I would recommend.
That's the one I cried through, and that's when I had to make the appointment with the PT, because I realized I don't think I'm supposed to be crying through yoga.
No, yeah, and I mean, and that's another thing too. Like, there's definitely a difference between being uncomfortable and pain, right? And we know that, but it should be a little uncomfortable. Because you need to focus on that breath work. Like, that's really important too. But it should never be painful. And I always tell my students, like, you don't have to do everything your yoga teacher tells you to do. Like, if it doesn't feel good, don't do it. And I always give them an out too. I'm like, you can go into a child's pose. You can raise your hand. I will come and fix you and help you find something that's going to be a little bit better. That's why I think being in a class setting is so much better than just being in front of the video. But like I said, the yin, it might be good for you guys to just look into it. I wouldn't do like an hour-long practice, maybe a 15-20 minute. And there's definitely a ton of stuff on YouTube you can pull up for that, the yin yoga. But those two are like the more stretchy kind of yoga classes. The vinyasa is going to be more of a, vinyasa means to put together, to weave together. So vinyasa is, when you think of the up dog, down dog, sun salutations, that's usually all of that stuff. And then there's some other ones, but those are the 3 main ones I would say, kind of look into. Anybody else have any experience or anything that they want to ask or talk about?
Do you recommend doing this, like, it's okay to do yoga on like your rest days? Because like, say you're in the gym 5 days a week lifting, then those other 2 days, it can kind of be like more so like an active rest day.
I think so. Yeah. Like, just, I would do even, a hike or something on those days. I don't ever take a full rest day. I'm not very good at sitting still. So for me, I would definitely do yoga on my off days. And it could be whatever. So, and I've had to really get myself out of the mindset of, I've always got to go and work hard, when I'm doing anything, right? Even yoga, I'm going to be the best at it.
Mm-hmm.
But I like restorative yoga. I've just come to know, like, this is probably what we all need more than the vinyasa stuff, is the just laying on the floor stuff, just giving our bodies a chance to just be and breathe. And it's really good. Like if you guys ever want to come to Westminster, I will massage you in my class too. Like that's how I get them to come back. So I'm like, come back, I'll put my hands on your body. And hey, it works, right? But it's kind of like a 2-for-1. You get a $14 yoga class and a free massage while you're in there too. So yes. So yeah, I would totally say you can do yoga on your off days.
And as a trainer, I would agree. I program that for clients a lot. But they don't always do it.
Well, yeah. It's a commitment that you have to force yourself to make, which is good. I think to put it in my mindset, like, okay, this is something that I should be doing, and to try and move forward with actually implementing that is like the strategy.
Yeah.
As far as like hamstrings, so that's my biggest issue. Everywhere else I'm pretty flexible, but like when you sit on the ground and you have both feet out in front of you and you try to do a toe touch, I mean, that is not happening for me. My hamstrings are so tight, they're like guitar strings. So is that something that yoga will help loosen up?
It can. So the 3 big ones: hips, hamstrings, low back. And like Tina said, those things they're all connected to each other, right? So yeah, I mean, and truth be told, and I probably taught this when we were at the retreat, but when you touch your toes, you're always going to bend your knees. I mean, I don't know anybody that can touch their toes without bending their knees. And I just had a friend that did a yoga retreat. She was in Costa Rica for actually almost a whole month, but she was working with a soccer team out there. And the first class she taught them, that's part of the yoga routine, is the forward fold, bend to touching your toes. They could not wrap their brain around the fact that they had to bend their knees to touch their toes. Like she had to beat that into them. Like, this is how you do it. And I mean, I've had that experience with the boys too. Like, I don't know what it is with the guys. They don't want to bend their knees, but I'm going to show you. So that was something I was going to go over when we get to that point. So hips and hamstrings. What about the rest of you guys? Any parts of your body that give you trouble, would you say?
I know, Angel, you have the back.
I was going to say, not for me so much with trouble in terms of pain or anything like that, but I can't get quite the pelvic tilt that I want to really get my booty out there when I'm posing.
How long have you been?
What's that?
Go ahead. How long have you been competing?
About 2.5 years.
Yeah. It could help. I think it does a lot. And for competing, what I find most helpful with yoga is really the breathing. I mean, I've seen it as a person in the audience, but this last show I did, I don't know what it was, but and I thought, there's no way I'm not going to win because these chicks are breathing like crazy. Just so you know, I didn't win, but they were just huffing and puffing the whole time. And I thought, am I the only one hearing this? So, I mean, I think that gives an advantage because you got to hold the breath inside the body, and then find a way to also be comfortable while you're uncomfortable, and those freaking heels don't help with the hamstrings and the low back, right? So, I mean, I think for our sport specifically, like, I do think it's really, really beneficial. Yeah. Anybody else? How about shoulders? Anybody got shoulder issues?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So I'm gonna give you one for shoulders too. And then Kat, you said you've been doing body flow?
Yeah, I do body flow, not as often as I would like, but kind of like what Angel said, I've asked for help from from people. I'm like, so how do I increase my anterior tilt? And the PTs are like, no, don't, that's not what you're doing. But, I've had someone that, one of the nerve flossing exercises he gave me, he's like, it should help you with that tilt. But what I struggle with in that is it's a lot of diaphragmatic breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's pushing my gut out as far as I can, which is completely counter to what I want to be doing.
Huh. I've never heard that before. I know that was, I did. So when I stepped off the stage this last time, I just needed to step away from bodybuilding for a little bit. And I started exploring powerlifting and CrossFit. And I mean, I did the powerlifting thing for about 5 months, but that pushing your stomach out, I just couldn't, I mean, you need to do a little bit of that to keep the back safe, but I just couldn't. And then when I'm looking around at all these lady powerlifters and they're all like just guts out, and I'm like, that's not helping anything.
It's all guts and butts.
Yeah, right. And you know what? So the other thing that I just really think is absolutely crazy to me is, these other things like CrossFit. I will say CrossFit, I don't know if any of you guys have any experience in that. I touched on it a couple years ago. I'm just getting back into it. That's probably one of the few sports that I've noticed that they really do drive home flexibility. So it's usually included in their warm-up. There's usually some foam rolling. So I got to give it to CrossFit. They've got that part under control. But powerlifting, for them, they hardly do anything else. They don't do any cardio. They don't really enforce cardio. It's just about lifting, and that's it. So
one of the things that I mean, and I do program it into every athlete's program. So everybody has foam rolling and stretching, whether or not they're doing it
right.
is a whole other issue. But it's programmed in there. And one of the things I try to drive home, I mean, because this isn't, and look, trust me, I didn't do any of this when I was competing. Nobody told me to stretch. Nobody told me to foam roll. Nobody told me to do shit, but they did, take the time to tell me to eat tilapia and asparagus, which was also equally important. So, but these are the things that honestly, I really truly believe that I am in the position that I'm in now, right? With all of my injuries, because I was not treating the whole athlete's body. And if you look at any professional football player, baseball player, they have extreme stretching and foam rolling and, taking care of their body routines. There is no professional athlete out there that isn't well-rounded in the sense that, whether they have meditation or yoga or flexibility or whatever the hell you want to call it. You don't get to be an elite level athlete without it. You just don't. So why we should be doing the same things for our bodies so that we don't, so that we can be the best bodybuilders that you can be, because it's not just about posing on stage and the hip flexibility. It's about having that connection with it's the mind muscle connection. It's the breathing. It's going to make you lift better. You're going to be stronger if you're more flexible. So all of those things make a huge, and you're going to be able to do it for a longer period of time. You're not going to be 46 years old and not able to lift anymore, like me.
And crying, doing yoga.
Do as I say, not as I once did.
So, Tina, you might appreciate, because I have like 3 foam rollers in my house, which I hate using. And I'll get on it for a minute and I'm like, this sucks. I don't want to do it anymore. So my boyfriend had to tell me the way that he got me to do it more. He goes, with these adhesions are preventing your muscles from growing bigger. So you can loosen it up so the muscles can grow. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll do it. Wow.
Yeah, and when you realize, so like the hamstring flexibility and things like that, if you ever get a really deep tissue massage and when the massage therapist finds the knot and they're digging into that knot, those knots, those adhesions and those knots are what are keeping you from being as strong as you could be. They're going to give you muscle imbalances, and then you're going to end up with like severe injuries if you let those knots hang out in there longer than they should be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality of the situation.
I completely
get a foam roller then.
Yeah. I have one sitting next to my TV. I look at it every day. I just look at it. It makes me cry.
I truly am just, and not everybody, I'm not saying like I'm the worst case scenario, but you don't want to end up here where literally that's my only choice. So the only thing I really get to do right now is roll around on a lacrosse ball. And if you think a foam roller hurts,
I know, yeah,
try a lacrosse ball in the knots in your glutes. So these are, and it hurts, but I know that it's the thing that's like helping to release all of the issue, the muscle imbalances and stuff. I just want you guys to be the best athletes that you can be. So it really shouldn't be looked at as I'll do it if I have time or I don't feel like it. It should be no different than tracking your macros. It should be no different than, hitting your PRs and getting your workouts in. It's got to be something. And like Chris said, you don't have to do it for 30 minutes a day. Have an active rest day and do it on your, and try to, get a little warm up and cool down stuff on your training days. But, worst case scenario, stretch in between exercises. If that's all you do in your workout, then that's better than nothing. And then you have one day where you do yoga or body flow or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the reason I am so into yoga is just because it's so much more convenient for me to actually go to a class and take a class and have somebody else tell me what to do than to try and be responsible and do it on my own at the end of a workout. But it really, you got to find what works for you. And if you can do it at the end of the workouts, then do it at the end of the workouts. Just do it. Just do it. Right. But yeah, so I mean, and I'm going to show you guys a couple of things. Actually, I'm going to go grab something I forgot to pull up here. Talk amongst yourselves real quick. You mind?
No, go ahead.
We were so busy talking before we got started that I totally forgot. Hold on.
So you guys are all going to start stretching, right? I'm really glad that the truth has come out here and that nobody's actually following my. Now I wonder what else you guys aren't doing that I tell you to do.
I love that there's no comments.
This is optional. I think I've even put it in some people's programs, like, this is not optional. But nobody ever, you know what? I'm going to put it in the check-in forms. Did you stretch this week? So y'all can lie to me, or it will no longer be lying by omission. You'll be like actually lying to me if you say, no, I did not stretch.
You need to put the stretching in the actual workout spreadsheet. That'll make it more efficient.
Okay.
And that,
fair enough. So in the instructions isn't good enough. I'll put it on the actual training day what I want you to do. I got you. Okay, fair enough.
Instead of saying like, this is rest day, you should say you're gonna have to do yoga this day.
I've tried that.
There's an app that I used to use. There's an app that I used to use, and it made me stretch faithfully almost daily, and it was called Active.
Mm-hmm.
And I freaking loved it. It had every type of stretching that exists from 3
So why
minutes.
why aren't you using that now?
I don't know. I just stopped doing it.
is that the AAPTIV?
Yeah. I love it.
I'm dropping you guys.
I use it to run now, but I don't use it to stretch. Go figure.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to give you guys just a couple of tools. So this is a yoga block. This is the cork block. These are a little bit more expensive. They're just really firm. A regular block you can get at 5 and Below for $5. So I would get 2 of those. But this is like the best tool I think you could ever get for yourself, especially for restorative. This is one of those Mexican blankets, but you could use any blanket. So I'm going to show you guys a couple of restorative poses first. But what you would want to do is just kind of take your blanket, towel, whatever you got, and you're going to roll it into whatever you want to call it. I like to call it a joint, but if that doesn't resonate with you, then you can make it okay. So you're going to make it into this, like, just a cylinder shape. You know, the easiest, most basic one is just to kind of get on the floor. You'll take that little blanket, put it under your knees. This would be kind of a good place just to kind of start.
Yeah, can you tilt down just a little bit, Chris? There you go.
Okay, hopefully it won't fall on you guys. Okay, so here it is, just under the knees, and then you'll just roll back, lie onto your back. So that's just a basic shavasana kind of feel. The other one I really like to do with this is you would take the blanket and put it down the spine. So this will help with the chest openers. So you would bump the bottom of the roll right up to the tailbone, and then it's going to roll right down the length of the spine. So you might have to kind of fix it and finagle it, and then arms would just come out to the side. And then whatever you would want to do with your legs. So if you're somebody that has a lot of lower back issues, I always say bend your knees, take your feet a little bit wider than the hips, let the inner knees tap into touch, and that'll take pressure off the lower back. And then you would want to hold that one. So that's typically one I start people off with in the restorative class, and I hold them there probably 5 to 10 minutes. That's probably my most favorite one that's going to help open the chest. You can also do it with pillows, like take a couple of bed pillows and just sort of stack them on top of each other and then just lay there and kind of bliss out. But that's really going to give this an opportunity to open up and just, you know, start to open and relax. And that'll release stuff around the tension of the neck as well. My favorite restorative pose is legs up the wall, which I'm sure you guys have probably seen before. You can do it with just putting your legs up the wall. If you have some flexibility or mobility, you could use a block, put that under the sacrum. I'm gonna try and see if I can find a good way to show you guys this one. It's like you're going on a field trip, everybody. Going on a field trip around my husband's office. All right. So there's really no graceful way to get your legs totally up the wall. The easiest way to do it is to just sit up against the wall. You'll bump your hip, your shoulder, sit all the way down. You'll roll onto your back, and then just lift your legs up the wall and roll onto the back. I know you can't see me, so I'm not going to show you, but hip, shoulder up against the wall, roll back onto the forearms, let the legs slip up the wall, and then you want to stay there about 10 minutes. That's what I would recommend doing every week. It's going to give the blood a chance to move in a different direction. It's going to improve circulation. So it's really good if you sit all day. It's really good for teachers, anybody that's on their feet all day long. And even if you just notice like you have some swelling in the ankles or the feet, that's perfect. So we talked a little bit about tight shoulders, tight hips, and tight hamstrings. Anything else? Low back?
Low back.
The other one. Okay. So low back, for this one, this is where your block will come in handy. So you're going to take the block. This is the last restorative pose I'm going to show you guys. So there's 3 settings to the block. You've got the lowest setting, your medium setting, highest setting. For the restorative, we're going to call it restorative bridge pose. I use the medium setting, but if your hip flexors are really super tight, you'll put it on the lowest setting. And you'll know right away if your hip flexors are tight. So you just kind of roll down, set your feet up like you would for any other kind of bridge, push into the heels, and then you're going to slide the block under the sacrum. Okay, so this is really good if you have tight psoas, the tight hip flexor area. And if you're not sure where your sacrum is, you want to find the very top of your butt crack. Stick your finger in that butt crack, and then just above it is where the block is going to go.
Kat, are you putting your finger in your butt crack right now?
I'm not, because I know I've done it before.
No,
so
Kat is. I'm watching. I think we all are.
You just want to make sure you're not on the tailbone or the lower back. So it's like that space in there. And then I would stay here forever. Like I would stay here for 5 to 10 minutes. You know, I don't recommend the highest setting. That's actually a little bit more work than I want to do in this posture, but it is a possibility. But I would just say probably medium low setting, 5 to 10 minutes to stay here. And then for hips, I'm just to show you regular pose. So most of you guys know you never stretch a cold muscle. So if you're in a yoga class, you're already going to be warmed up by the time you get to something like this. But most of you guys know it as like what, a runner's stretch is what I think normal people call it, where they have their legs sort of one's in front, one's in back. So if you're really tight in the hips, you're going to do, I call it a pinwheel. So you've got your legs in 90 degrees. And then from here, you'll feel a stretch more in the inner hip area than you would on the outer hip. And you can kind of just rotate your chest forward and let your hands kind of rest down. And then you can always kind of extend through. Of course, the most popular, or the most one that you probably see more than anything else is this one here. So let me do it on the other side. So if you can see, probably not, I know you guys really want to look at my butt, but you can see my butt is not on the floor, and most times even when I'm warm it's not, so that block under the butt is really, really perfect. And then you can kind of just sit in it for a few breaths. Any pose you're going to hold, you want to hold it for about 10 breaths, okay? And then what I tell people is, after a couple of breaths, if this area starts to feel a little bit more open, you can move the block, and then maybe that glute will come all the way to the floor. The important thing in that one is the back leg, the one that's long and stretched out. So when you look back, you want to make sure that you've got one line from the hip through the heel and down into the middle 2 toes. So a lot of the times I'll see people have like something funky happening with their foot. Like it's either turned in, it's turned out, the toes are curled under. Like it's just, you want to just make sure that that's safe. Okay. All right, so chest. We're going to do one more for the chest and shoulders, and then you guys can ask me if there's, forward folds. So we want to talk, Lainey, I want to talk about hamstrings. Okay, so deep shoulder stretch. So both arms will come out to the side to start. You'll bring one hand in, and you'll bend your back knee. And then you guys may have even seen this one before. So all you're going to do is kind of push off, and you'll stack your knees one on top of each other to start. If your chest and your shoulders really tight, then you'll stay here. If you got a little bit more, you want more flexibility, you can put your back ball of the foot on the floor so the whole foot's not down, but you'll see that knee is pushing to the ceiling, and then you can kind of press back and roll back a little bit more. This one is kind of tricky, especially if you've had any shoulder issues.
Yeah, I'm looking at you going, oh my God, no way. My shoulder's not going to do that. I really want it to, but I don't think it's going to. I'm going to try it though.
You want to just always be careful, listen to your body, and know that like even legs up the wall, I think sometimes people have a hard time with that one. You know, you're not used to you don't usually have your legs over your head most of the time, right? So that can be a little bit weird. I'll feel a sensation in my hips more than anything else. So that can get a little like funky for me sometimes. But if you can sit with it for a few breaths, it'll go away, and then your body will start to tingle and it'll feel good. So with the hamstrings, and then I'll let you guys kind of ask if there's anything you want to ask or whatnot. So remember the soccer boys. So whether you're on your feet or you are sitting on your butt, you want to always keep some flexion in the ankles, and then you'll see there's a really big space between the floor and the back of my knees. So you want to keep that happening, and then you'll always inhale, lift up, and then lean a little bit forward. And when this connection here happens between your belly and your thighs, then you can drop the arms down. And I mean, I'm not warm, I'm super tight. This is it for me, you know. So I don't have my hands, they're at the feet, but they probably shouldn't be there. And it would be the exact same way when you're standing on your legs. I don't know if you guys are gonna see the full body. They're not. You'll trip. Uh-oh. I lost you.
We can see you.
You can see me?
Mm-hmm.
What the hell happened? Okay. Okay, so, well, I can't see you, but anyway. So you would do the same thing, bend the knees, forward fold, make that connection between your belly and your thighs. All right. So you guys can see me. Do you guys have any questions or?
So Chris, is it more important to have the belly touch the thighs than to have your legs? So that's the important part of the pose, not having your legs straight and putting your hands on the floor.
Right, exactly. There you are. Yeah, so you always want to have the knees bent. How much they bend, that's going to depend on that's where your flexibility comes in, your mobility. You know, there's 4 corners to your foot. So there's the ball, the inside of the ball of the foot, the outside of the ball of the foot, the heel. You never want to make sure the weight's never going to be in the toes. So always have people kind of lift their toes and separate them a little bit so they can find that place in their feet. And as long as your body weight is in that space between those 4 corners, then you can kind of tip forward, then maybe start thinking about lengthening just your tailbone towards the ceiling. So don't think so much about straightening the legs, but more like tipping your hips up towards the ceiling a little bit more. And then once you're there for a few breaths, then you can kind of play around with how straight your legs are going to get. But yeah, don't worry about straightening your legs, not important.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Does anybody have any questions or any other specific body parts you want Chris to show you how to stretch?
Can you redo that last shoulder chest one that you did with your knees stacked?
Yeah, so this, if you look it up online, it's not actually a yoga pose. It's just called a deep shoulder stretch. So from the side view, you would have both arms out like a T position. Okay, let's just say we're gonna do the right leg. So you would do right hand comes in next to the chest, and you got your hand, really close into the body. You'll bend the same leg, so it'll be that back right leg. And then all you're gonna do, keep your left arm or the back arm straight. You'll roll back onto the left hip. So think about the hip first. Then you can decide what's happening in shoulder. So if shoulder pec minor is cranky or tight, you'll lean a little bit forward into this right hand. If you've got, a little bit more to give, then you want to roll that right foot back. The ball of the foot will be on the floor, and then the knee will be pointed up, and then you would relax your head down. And then you'll stay with it. And you can kind of keep pushing into that right hand to roll back a little bit more, and then get a little bit more of a stretch. But this is one that I would say just, if you've got any kind of shoulder stuff, be careful. You don't want to push it past its point, which can get easy, especially if you do a hot yoga class, right? That can be tricky. It's sort of like when you're pregnant, you have all that extra elastin in the body. You think you're more bendy than you actually are. So you want to just make sure that you're not pushing your body past its normal flexibility. Anybody else?
So one thing I wanted to, one of the things that Chris has joined the team to do, what I think is fabulous, and when I can do yoga again, you guys can she can do online sessions with you, like personal online sessions for your specific issues. So, like Lainey, if you wanted, to just have Chris spend 30 minutes with you online, like helping you with the hamstring stretches and like a bunch, whatever else, it is. It doesn't have to be a whole yoga class. It could just be something specific to, what you're trying to work on with your flexibility or with your stretching. So
that is awesome.
Yeah. That's one of the things she's joined us to do. So
yay. That's really cool for like maybe people who don't have the time to spend in the gym to actually go to a yoga class, but that's something that they want to do within their program, especially on prep. That's going to make it so much easier for them to accomplish.
Yeah. And like, like Sherelle, like if you really don't want to, go to an hour-long yoga class, if she could probably just show you the stretches that you need for, the really important stuff, right? That works. Yeah. So you don't have to, for you and the issues you're trying, right? So if you're in class and something's like hurting like crazy, that means you're tight like crazy. So maybe there's just a couple of stretches or poses she can show you that you could just do on your own, that you don't have to sit through a whole yoga class if that's not what you want to do.
Cheryl, what do you remember? Sorry, go ahead.
It's easier for me to stretch like before I go to bed at night.
Yeah.
It's easier for me to take 20 minutes out before I go to sleep and stretch. I put myself down, I stretch, and then it's done.
Exactly.
Instead of making like a whole
day,
I purposely go to the gym to do yoga. Not that I won't, because I'm told to do it, right?
So you don't have to do yoga, but you have to do some kind of stretching, restorative something. Like, and I know that you're a David Goggins fan, as I am, equally as obsessed. And he stretches for like 3 hours.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's insane.
So
what the heck?
Yeah. So I'm just saying the importance of it, and you look at what that man has been able to accomplish, right? And what he's able to push his body to do in 150-mile, ultra marathons.
Yeah.
The stretching is absolutely essential. So
right.
Yeah, I mean,
did that inspire you to stretch?
It did. I'm gonna stretch.
Okay, I thought so. If David Goggins does it, it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean,
ask me something, Chris.
Yeah.
What were you asking? You had started.
Oh, I can't remember. Oh, what hurt when? Do you remember what you were doing? You were like, I freaking hate this. I'm never coming back.
It was. So I don't even know how to explain it. So like you were sitting on your heels, so your knees.
Did she make you twist?
No, it wasn't that. So you had to okay, I'm standing up, but like, I don't know how to explain. You like squat, but then your heels ended up under your butt.
Okay.
On the ground. Then you had to like lean forward, like
stretch. Oh. She had to do crow pose. Were you like supposed to like balance on your arms?
No. Okay, but if I was, I didn't. No. So you were supposed to you're in this like squat. It's not a squat. So your shins were touching the ground.
Oh.
Your heels were underneath your butt like that. Okay. And then you had to stretch forward. But the day before, I think I did legs or something. And I don't know what happened, but my hamstring just caught a cramp. And I was like, what in the living hell? Like, this is not working.
That sounds like child's pose.
Yeah, it does.
Is that supposed to be the easy one?
That's supposed to be the resting pose.
Well, it wasn't resting.
Maybe class was resting. You know what's really funny is that is what my high school boys struggle with the most. They don't like child's pose. And I'm like, this is the one that you're supposed to do when you're like, tired and you need a rest. But yeah, I mean, so you're not alone. You're not alone.
And then so the second time I went, she did the same thing. So that was the first time that I caught like a hamstring cramp. But then the second time I didn't catch a hamstring cramp, but my ankles felt really like tight. Like I was like, okay, so why when I'm done do my ankles hurt?
Well, I think that's part of, that's going to take some time. So that is one thing I touch on the most when I teach a vinyasa classes. Like you're building ankle stability and strength. There's not a whole lot that you can do that's good. Like you don't go to the gym and do this, right? Like you're not going to strengthen your ankles. So they can get pretty weak. And there's a lot of stuff that surrounds them that we have to work to get strong. Mm-hmm. you know, we really don't. So holding something like a warrior pose, you know, where you're got like in a lunge position and you're there for 5 to 10 breaths, that's going to, you know, create some strength around the ankles. And then the other thing that I think is a big concern for people is the wrist. So when they first do, you know, yoga, their wrists hurt from down dog, up dog, plank pose.
Yeah.
So, and some of it's just a matter of getting used to it. Some of it's technique. You know, I find like just watching people and what they do, form is just a big thing. You know, people have really shitty form, and it's either they just don't know how to find it in their body, or they've not had, you know, a good teacher kind of explain this, or they just haven't found a way to make it resonate with them. But yeah, so ankles and wrists are a big one, and that just is going to take some time and use.
So can I share a little trick for ankle stability?
Yes, please. Can I write it down?
Yeah, so I learned this when I was training, when I was running a lot, because I was doing a lot of trail running. So when you put your socks and shoes on, to do it standing up. So to stand up and then, you know, lift up your leg to tie your shoes and everything. And then that's going to help the stability in your supporting ankle.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Well, and if to put this in context, right? So if you have weak wrists and weak ankles, so, you know, a lot of bodybuilding stuff you do standing on your feet, your hands to like lift stuff. So it's kind of important to have stable ankles. And you know, those 5-inch hooker heels that you have to wear on stage also require some ankle strength, right? So, you know, kind of putting it all into context of like why it's actually important. You know, those, and again, if you have, you're only as strong as your weakest body part.
Right.
So if you have weak ankles and weak wrists, you're probably losing out on you know, being able to lift as much weight as you would like to in different areas based on how strong those body parts are.
Yeah.
And the flexibility, like try doing a front squat with no wrist flexibility.
Yeah.
Right? Or, you know, any kind of, you know, clean motion, right? With no wrist flexibility. So those things are kind of important.
Yeah. Well, I definitely appreciate you guys giving me an opportunity. I do feel like a little all over the place from time to time, but at the end of the day, you know, I think I just want to drive home how important the flexibility is. If you guys ever want to connect with me and just go over a few things that you feel like you just want to touch on, like what are the basics, what can help me the most, you know, you can reach out to Tina or myself. Or if you're ever in my area, I would love to have you come to a yoga class. Kat, where are you from? Do you live in Florida?
Where is your area? I'm sorry.
Westminster, Maryland. I'm in so you're in Florida, right?
Florida, yeah.
You're not close.
Angel's in Ohio, so she popped off, but she's in Ohio. But that's why. So if you do want to kind of, you know, do like a 30-minute online session with Chris, that's just individualized to you, you know, that way it can kind of be based on whatever it is that you want to specifically talk about and work through.
Yeah.
Then she's available to do that for you.
All right.
But the last thing that I will say, and again, it's not just about flexibility, because that it's also about strength and stability. It's not just flexibility, it's stability. So a lot of the restorative stuff is, you know, flexibility and opening up and, you know, restorative things. But then a lot of the other things like the vinyasa flow, right? There's a lot of stability and strength that goes into a lot of those poses, and it's only going to make you a better bodybuilder.
I agree.
A better athlete, whatever it is you choose to do, whether you want to run a marathon or get into powerlifting or CrossFit or, you know, continue with bodybuilding, whatever it is, it's only going to make you a better athlete.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that it is just as important as everything else that we do. And that's the only thing I want to drive home with you guys, is just to know that although it's the easiest thing to cut out, just to consider making an effort to make it part of your weekly routine. You know, if you can do a little bit at the end of your workouts, do a little bit. If you could set aside some time, you know, a chunk of time, 15 minutes to an hour once a week, then I would do it. Like, I think nothing more is going to benefit you very much for the stage and for lifting or whatever it is that you do. You know, I don't plan on taking the stage anytime soon, but I just know that as an athlete, especially now that I'm doing more of the CrossFit stuff, like I've got a leg up on everybody else, and who doesn't want to be better than other people? Like I do. you know, so I like to beat the guys. I compete against the guys. So, and they are not flexible at all, but yeah, so yeah, anything you guys, if you have any questions that you feel like we didn't touch on or anything you want to reach out to me, make sure, you know, if you do, you can message me on Facebook or whatnot.
Yep. And I recorded this. I'm going to turn off the recording here in a second, but I recorded it, so I'll post a link to it on the Facebook page so you guys can go back through it if you didn't remember the things that she talked about.
The poses.
You kind of want to review the poses and stuff.
Thanks for this opportunity, Tina.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. I think it was great. I learned stuff too, so it was good.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.